Hey, what's up there, YouTubers and those who may be watching this on Facebook? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent Switch/gaming video for this week, where I take a look at some of the stories that caught my attention and give you my thoughts and my opinion. And this one is for the week of August 4th to the 10th, and we got 8 stories to actually cover, including one that is going to be, which some may view as being very political, but I am going to stand behind the statements I'm going to make though. Before we get to our stories, let's do some quick My 2 Cent part, and we have like about 4 of them. And the first one is, we learned that Sega is going to reveal a mystery, supposedly AAA game at Gamescom this month though. No word on what that game may be. It could be a new IP, it could be a return to a popular franchise though. We'll have to wait and see what it is, and we don't know if this will come to the Switch or not, so we'll have to wait and see if that even comes to fruition. Apologize, I'm not saying that word correctly. We also learned that supposedly a pre-order goes live for a history book of the Metal Slug series. This is one of my favorite 2D shooter games out there, with Metal Slug 3 being my personal favorite of all time though. So if you're interested in the book though, there's a link in the description of this YouTube video. It's from Nintendo Life, so you could check that out if that book in any way interests you at all. We also learned that Ty, the Tasmanian Tiger, if I'm saying the name correctly, originally this week went up as a Kickstarter to revive the classic platforms back in the early 2000s, and apparently this week it hit its stretch goals, and they're going to be bringing this game over to the Nintendo Switch. Be interested to see how well this one does, and if they'll bring any of the other entries in the series as before. One thing I do somewhat remember is the game was published by EA back then though, you know, before EA went completely downhill and so forth. Oh, I know I have this on, so my bad on that one though. And last but not least though, we learned that supposedly a game being released for the PS4 called, I think, a game called Genshin Impact, and this was like revealed at an event in China, and many supposedly Nintendo fans of China were not happy about it. About this, many accused the game as being like copying Breath of the Wild. Some at the event went as far as flipping the bird, raising their middle finger. Even one person went out of their way and smashed like their own PS4 over this, which, I mean, you know, if you don't want to get the game, you don't have to get it. That's fine. That's your opinion. But to be a little bit, you know, disrespectful to the developers like that, to even going as far as smashing your PS4, I think that's going like way out of line on that one. I mean, there have been games that have copied other games as well. Darksiders, for example, many viewed it as like, you know, this is like one part Zelda and one point and all that stuff, but at least it had its own, it also had something unique for itself as well, and perhaps this game may actually be good. I mean, the fact that the art style looks similar to Breath of the Wild, I mean, so what? Big whoop on that one, but to really take it that far and even smash a PS4 over this is just, yeah, I'm sorry, that's a little bit over the top on that one. Alright, with that quick My 2 Cent, with that part concluded, why don't we get started with our first part, and this one has to do with the announcement of course, a port of Darksiders 2 definitive edition. I have a hard time saying the word. So apparently, as some of you are aware, this week, this year though, basically THQ Nordic re-released Darksiders War Master Edition for the Nintendo Switch, an enhanced port of the original Darksiders that was released back on the PS3 and the 360. It was a good port. Gameplay still holds up very well, even though it does come off as saying, okay, this part's Zelda, this part's God of War, this part's like Devil May Cry and so forth. It was still a fun game. Plus, it also had the addition of a graphical option where you could play this, basically play it with a solid 60 frames per second, but with a lower resolution, or have a higher resolution but have a lower frame rate and so forth. I opted to go with the higher frame rate with the lower resolution, but everyone has their own different takes though. And ever since that game came out, there were many who speculated that it was only a matter of time before Darksiders 2 made its way over to the Nintendo Switch, even with reports of it basically being leaked that that there was like a pre-order up for it and so forth. Well, we learned that THQ Nordic basically has announced it, that they are bringing Darksiders 2 to the Nintendo Switch. In an article from Destructoid, it reads, quote, "Following up the release of Darksiders War Master Edition, Darksider Definitive Edition, or Definitive, I have a hard time saying that word, will be heading to the Nintendo Switch this year. Release on September 26, 2019, it will be available digitally and physically for $29.99, $30, $26.99, or I'm going to say £27 and 30 euros, $29.99 there. There will be no Switch exclusive or contents apart from the portable play that the console offered. So far, I haven't heard if the game's going to have like that graphical option the way Darksiders War Master Edition had. That said, though, still, I'm very pleased that they're bringing this over to the Nintendo Switch. To me, Darksiders 2 is my favorite entry in the series, though. I definitely like how this one had a little bit more of a Zelda feel to it than, somewhat of a little bit more of a Zelda feel. Although, like the first one, though, it is basically, you still could point out, like, that's part Zelda, that part's God of War, and so forth, though. But it seems to be a little bit, I also feel like it's a little bit more, open world and so forth. Plus, they also emphasize on the loot, sort of taking a page out of the Diablo series as well. So it was definitely a fun game. And with this, and of course with Darksiders Genesis, though, this year we definitely saw a lot of Darksiders games make their way over to the Switch. The one entry that still we don't know if it will ever come to the Switch, though, is Darksiders 3. That was released last year on the PS4 and the Xbox One. I didn't hate the game or anything like that. It was a fun game. It followed a little bit more. It was a little bit more of a Castlevania feel to it, with a little bit of a Dark Souls feel to it, which honestly some people weren't really a big fan of that or anything like that. And it's unclear if that entry will come to the Nintendo Switch. That said, it is worth pointing out that Darksiders 3 supposedly does run on Unreal Engine 4. And given the fact that the Switch supports Unreal Engine 4, I would say there is a chance it could come to the Nintendo Switch. It's not a guarantee, but I do think there is a chance Darksiders 3 could make its way over to Nintendo Switch. But we'll have to wait and see if that happens. But overall, glad that Darksiders 2 is coming to the Nintendo Switch. Looking forward to playing this one, especially for playing on the Nintendo Switch as well. And not to mention, it is my favorite entry in the Darksiders series, though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to part 2, and we're going to talk about Grandia, Grandia, apologize for not saying correctly, HD Collection, has now got a release date, and it is coming to the Nintendo Switch. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at the release date of the HD collection, an RPG HD collection of Grandia, Grandia. Again, I apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly. I have a hard time saying certain titles and certain names and so forth. Anyway, if there's one thing I've been noticing with the Switch lately, is that it's following a pattern I've seen in the past with both the Game Boy Advance and, like stuff like the Nintendo DS, and that is that it's slowly starting to become a machine where you're going to see a lot of RPGs start coming to the system. And I don't see that as necessarily as a bad thing, considering that I do think RPGs could definitely benefit a lot on the Nintendo Switch, especially epic RPGs, given the whole concept behind the Nintendo Switch being a console, handheld, hybrid, and so forth. Well, it seems as though we may be adding another game to this collection as well, and that is Grandia HD Collection. Again, I might be a dead horse saying this, but apologize for not saying the name correctly. And it looks like it will be coming out next week on August 16th. In an article posted on GameSpot, it reads, quote, Grandia, Grandia, and Games.to, a pair of games originally released on the Sega Saturn and Dreamcast console. I think the first one also was re-released on the original PlayStation, and the second one also saw a release on the PlayStation 2. I remember seeing those. Respectively, are coming to the Nintendo Switch. The Grandia HD Collection will hit Nintendo's handheld console hybrid on August 16th, with a PC release planned for some time later. Both games will feature newly retouched details for the user interface, sprites, and texture, enhanced cinema, Japanese and English audio tracks, and Japanese and English language support, along with new French and German translation. The PC version of the collection will also feature widescreen support and customization resolution. The PC version of the first game will also get a Steam card and achievement and gamepad support. The Grandia Anniversary Collection for PC, which has been available since 2015, will be renamed Grandia 2 HD Remastered. So apparently the first one is now being released on the PC via Steam. So for PC owners, that's probably going to be may interest you there as well. The fact that they're renaming it HD Remaster, I personally don't understand why not keep the name Anniversary Collection, but it is what it is. Anyway, the Grandia games were Sega's answer to PlayStation having a lock on the Final Fantasy series, and the first game drew favorable comparison to games like, I think, Final Fantasy VIII. I have a hard time reading Roman numerals, sorry though. And from what I understand though, supposedly the Switch version is basically digital only, as there is no word of a physical version, let alone if we're not going to hear anything about a physical version down the road. Personally, I would have loved to see a physical version though, but you know what? If it's going to be available digitally, it's going to be available digitally, and since I have a 1 terabyte micro SD card on my Nintendo Switch, I'll give it a go on that one. Either way, it's nice that it's coming to the Nintendo Switch, with the first one now coming to PC via Steam, though. And it's definitely a series I've heard about, but never got into or ever tried out before. And it's certainly one I will take definitely under consideration to try out, though. Again, a little unfortunate that we don't, that at least as far as the Switch version go, that there isn't a physical version at this time. Maybe that will change down the road, but for now, it's only going to be available via Nintendo eShop. But overall, glad that it's coming to the Nintendo Switch. Glad that PC gamers are going to get the first one, and glad that we're seeing a lot of RPGs come to the Nintendo Switch. I certainly don't mind that. I would like to see more RPGs come to the Nintendo Switch. I think it fits the Switch perfectly. At least that's how I see it, though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to part 3, and this one has to do with Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo doing something in response to the whole loot box controversy. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite thing to go after lately, and that is loot boxes, though. Ever since Star Wars Battlefront 2, loot boxes really have gone into the limelight, but for all the negative reasons. And along with microtransactions, as many of you are aware, there have been cases where some businesses and some AAA game developers are putting loot boxes in $60 games, to even some companies trying to patent or create a situation that encourages or forces you to spend money on loot boxes. We've also heard stories about people with gambling addictions, to even kids taking out their parents' credit cards to spend over like $1,000 on whether it's cosmetics or in-game stuff and all that. And that has certainly gotten a lot of attention. We've seen cases with countries like Belgium, I think, banning loot boxes as they are considered a form of gambling, to even a push in the US Senate to regulate loot boxes in general. As of right now, I'm not sure how far that bill has gotten or anything like that. Well, recently though, it has come out that apparently Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo has recently decided, or at least along with the ESA, to at least do something about it though. And while this isn't the end-all tell-all, and I don't see this as a situation where loot boxes are going away, I do think to some degree it's a start on something. It's not the perfect solution, but it certainly is a start. In an article on GameSpot, it's reported that, quote, at the Federal Trade Commission public panel on microtransactions in video games, the Entertainment Software Association, the ESA, announced that all three console platform holders have agreed to a voluntary change in their policy towards loot boxes, though the ESA defends the practice in broad terms, which honestly I'm not buying, especially the whole surprise mechanic crap. Yeah, that no one's buying that though. They said going forward, any new games or game update that adds loot boxes on Microsoft's, Nintendo, and Sony's platform will be required to disclose the rarity rate of items. Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony have indicated that the ESA a commitment to new platform policies with respect to the use of paid loot boxes in games that are developed for their platform. Specifically, this will apply to a new game and game update that adds loot box features and will require the disclosure of relative rarities or probabilities of attaining randomized virtual items in the game on their platform. The ESA person in charge notes that many lead publishers that are members of the ESA have committed to a similar approach at the publisher's level, and that this voluntary disclosure puts all platforms on par with mobile disclosure requirement. I believe I remember hearing Apple now putting out you have to disclose the odds of when you can retain like certain items and so forth in a lot of their mobile games and so forth. In a statement, the ESA notes that publishers who have agreed to disclose include Activision Blizzard, Bandai Namco, Bethesda, Bungie, Electronic Arts, Microsoft, Nintendo, Sony, Take-Two Interactive, Ubisoft, Warner Brothers, and Wizards of the Coast. The disclosure is said to be coming at the end of 2020, and other ESA members companies are considering joining the policy. This approach will also be compatible with the Apple and Google approach on mobile platforms. We believe that taking together, this provides a comprehensive approach that gets the information they need so they can make informed purchase decisions when it comes to paid loot boxes, though. Right now, as far as the response, though, both Microsoft and Nintendo and Sony have all responded, though. Microsoft says, we believe in transparency with consumers and providing them with information for making their purchase decision. This is a new policy that affects all new apps or games by 2020, offering loot boxes or other mechanics on Microsoft platforms that provides randomized virtual items for purchase must disclose to consumers prior to purchase for the odds of receiving each item. In addition, we're proud to offer robust family settings that offer further control over in-game purchases. Nintendo basically said, at Nintendo, we ensure that our customers can make informed choices when they play our games, and it's very important. As part of the ongoing effort in this area, Nintendo will require disclosures of drop rates in Nintendo Switch games that offer randomized virtual items for purchase, such as loot boxes. This requirement will apply to all new games and includes update to current games that add loot boxes through in-game purchases. We also offer tools like our Nintendo Switch Parental Control mobile app, which empowers parents to choose what works for their family, including manage in-game purchase and setting playtime limits. And of course, Sony also responded by saying, Sony Interactive Entertainment aims to ensure PlayStation users have access to information and tools such as parental wallet controls that will help them make informed decisions about in-game purchasing. We support the industry's effort to disclose the probability of obtaining randomized virtual items, known as loot boxes, and are committed to providing consumers with this information for all games we produce and publish. Now, many would argue and say that this is sort of that what Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo are doing are basically, pardon my language, covering their asses, though, especially with the whole loot box controversy. And to an extent, that's probably true. I'm not going to deny that this may be an attempt to try for them to cover their asses on this one. That said, I don't entirely disagree with this. I think it's important that this information is disclosed to consumers so that they know whether or not it's worth making the purchase on these items or in-game purchases, especially those that have loot boxes and microtransactions. Will this solve the loot box controversy? I'm leaning towards the answer being no. I think the controversy will still go on. I think a lot of people don't like the idea of loot boxes, especially in $60 premium games, though, and feel how a lot of AAA developers have abused the practice, whether it's Electronic Arts with what they did with Star Wars Battlefront 2 before the backlash came in, to what Activision recently did when they decided to, after the reviews of Crash Team Racing came in, they decided to pull a fast one and insert microtransactions into the game. So I don't think this is going to go away. I don't think the controversy is going to go away. But I will say to some degree it's kind of a step in the right direction. And I do think disclosure is absolutely important. I think consumers have a right to know before they decide to purchase any of these microtransactions, any game that has loot box or microtransactions, know what are the odds of what items you're going to get from them. That said, it does seem like there was an attempt to try to mislead consumers with this new policy. There is some that are trying to at least manipulate or mislead consumers. If this article from what Nintendo Enthusiast is saying is true, yeah, I could see this could be a major problem, though. The article from Nintendo Enthusiast, link will be in the description, reads that, quote, mystery publisher wanted to pay a streamer to misrepresent loot box odds. It reads that, quote, there has been a lot of talk about video games and violence lately, but that's not the only reason the government is interested in games. I'm going to get to the violent video games one last, a little bit later in this video. The FTC is also looking into the possibility of restricting loot boxes. Several countries have already banned or restricted loot boxes, labeling them as gambling mechanics. The U.S. government has not taken any such actions, but it may consider in the future. During a recent FTC workshop on loot boxes, some disturbing information came to light. According to a prominent figure in streaming, a publisher wants to pay a streamer to misrepresent loot box odds. Some streamers on YouTube and Twitch will air footage of themselves opening loot boxes. Publishers encourage this and may even pay content creators to open their loot boxes. Obviously, the hope is that the streamer's viewers will then be enriched to buy loot boxes themselves. However, what they watch on a live stream may not be accurate representative of the game. This may seem fake loot boxes odds. One of the CEOs of Online Performing Group discussed these types of live streams with the FTCs, and according to what he said when asked about this question, he says, quote, companies do pay for that sort of thing. It's pretty uncommon for it specific to be, hey, just open a bunch of loot boxes. But we're definitely seeing that. I've definitely been in a room. I've definitely been in a room where a publisher says we could do better odds on on the packs of this person opening for promotional purpose. That's only been one time. Essentially, this publisher was attempting to manipulate the audience into thinking that they have better odds. The person did not specifically which company made the offer. It's also unclear who the streamer was or if they accepted the offer. As unethical as it is, this type of practice is currently not illegal. Perhaps this will change in the future. And that's kind of the concern I have if this is true, where a publisher is trying to take advantage of a situation, kind of manipulate the odds on this. If that's true and everything, that's very dishonest and scummy though. And honestly, I think it should be illegal. I think to lie to your consumers about the odds, to manipulate it in a way so they can spend a certain unknown amount of money and all that stuff, that is very dishonest and very shady. And I hope this issue is addressed in a way, and I personally think it should be illegal to disclose false information to consumers about if you're using loot boxes or anything like that, all in the name of just trying to earn more and more money, though. I think that is disgusting in so many levels. So overall, I would have to say, like I said before, I don't think this is going to end the loot box controversy, but I do think in some degrees it's kind of a step in the right direction, though, but I don't think it's going to go away. And if what Nintendo Enthusiast is saying is true about what this mysterious publisher wanted to do, I think it's dishonest. I think it's despicable to lie to consumers about the odds of in loot boxes, though. And honestly, I hope it does become illegal to do something like that, because I think that publishers should not get away with that kind of BS at all. Okay, but like I said, that's my take on that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 4, and this one has to do with what Nintendo is probably going to be showing at Gamescom 2019. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 4 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Gamescom. As you probably are aware of, it's coming up. It's coming up this month, though. Basically, it's basically happens in Europe. It's kind of like I view it as kind of like Europe's own like E3 and so forth. And Nintendo will be at Gamescom this week, and they will have they'll have certainly plenty of games to show, including one that I'm very curious to see how well it runs on the Switch. In an article from, let me get this right, from Tech Radar, there reads that, quote, Nintendo confirms its plans for Gamescom 2019. Gamescom 2019 is fast approaching, and Nintendo has now revealed what its on and offline plan for the show will be. Gamescom itself runs from August 20th to the 24th, but the majority of Nintendo's online activity will take place between the 20th and the 22nd. Across these dates, those not attending the show itself will be able to watch a series of video featuring extensive gameplay from the publisher's upcoming Switch lineup. As far as getting the game sometime in the spotlight will include Luigi's Mansion 3, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, The Witcher 3, Astro Chain, Mario and Sonic at the Olympics game Tokyo 2020, and Dragon Quest X Echo of an Exclusive Age. For visitors to the show floor, Nintendo will have a booth where it's possible to get hands-on with the titles including The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remastered, Luigi's Mansion 3, Dragon Quest X, Pokemon Sword and Shield, and even the highly anticipated Witcher 3 port. New gameplay is all very well and good, but if you like nothing more than a good competition, then you want to tune into Nintendo's one-off Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Gamescom 2019 invitation on August 22nd. The event will start streaming on Nintendo's YouTube channel in the afternoon, and we'll see players go head-to-head for a chance to be flown to Japan for the Ultimate World Challenge Cup held in October. So Nintendo certainly has a couple games that they are going to be showing at the event, at Gamescom. I certainly will be looking at Luigi's Mansion 3, Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, Astro Chain, that's coming out later this month. That's definitely one of the titles I'm looking forward to getting. And would like to see more information on that one. Mario Sonic at the Olympics, I never really got into those games, so it really doesn't interest me as much, but I'm sure there's an audience for it. And Dragon Quest X, that's one I'm going to be looking at as well, because they're really putting a whole lot of content in this one. Especially the part about basically switch between the current graphics to the old, 16-bit style and so forth. So that's one I'll keep an eye out. But the one title I am looking forward to seeing on this list they'll be showing, to me, has to be The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This is a game that a lot of Nintendo fans were surprised about and were very pleased to see when a short, short video during Nintendo's E3 presentation of this game coming to Nintendo Switch. There were rumors and all, and at the time I decided to take it with a grain of salt because we don't know if the rumors were going to be true or not. But at E3 we finally learned that it turned out to be true. I am very curious to see how well does this game run on the Nintendo Switch. That's going to be a thing. It's going to be the big thing, because I've heard stories, and I may have said this before, on the fact that The Witcher 3 doesn't always run properly or anything like that. Again, I don't know how much of that is true or not, though, but there have been times of when, where the game doesn't run properly, to if you don't have the proper PC parts or a rig to run the game or anything like that. And for a game like this to appear on a system which isn't as powerful as the PS4 and Xbox One, still surprising. So I'm very, very curious about this one, and I would like to see some real extensive gameplay to see exactly how well does the game run. We know Saber Interactive is handling the Switch port. We know that the game is going to be, I think, 540p when in portable mode and 720p in dock mode with dynamic resolution. We know that the game is going to be on a full 32GB cart with all the DLCs and everything put into it, though. So that is very impressive, and props to CD Projekt Red really putting some effort, making sure that the Switch version runs. Trying to do what they can to make sure the Switch version runs well. But I think the real test is I think there are going to be some people who do want to see how well does this game run on the Nintendo Switch, and I'm certainly one of those people. So overall, very interesting to see what Nintendo is showing at Gamescom this year, though. Certainly there are some games out there that I think a lot of people are going to be looking at, and there's certainly some out there for me that I will be keeping an eye out on. But for me, the big one is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and seeing how well does that game run on the Nintendo Switch. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to part 5, and this one has to do with a bit of a controversy again surrounding Borderlands 3, and this time a push based off of a hashtag calling for saying boycott Borderlands 3. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 5 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be talking about Borderlands 3 and more controversy it's getting, especially with the recent push of a hashtag of boycott Borderlands 3. So as some of you are aware, Borderlands 3 was revealed earlier this year, the long-awaited sequel to the original looter shooter, the original Borderlands, and Borderlands 2, and also Borderlands pre-sequel, though. Now, to me, I've enjoyed the Borderlands series, though. I think it's I definitely like the whole art style to the game. I definitely like the whole looter shooter concept and the whole RPG, mixing it with shooters and all that stuff. In fact, I would say if I had to choose between playing Call of Duty or Borderlands, I would pick Borderlands over Call of Duty any day. So it is a favorite favorite first-person shooter of mine. At the same time, as much as I enjoy the series, I'm also kind of torn about it because it's from Gearbox, which has a unfortunately notorious history, especially with the whole Alien Colonial Marine debacle. I'm sure we all remember that. And we also remember Randy Pitchford's attitude, how he defended that attitude to recently this year he's been under the news highlight over harassing several employees, to basically supposedly some information found in like a USB drive found at like in the medieval times of content that may have been inappropriate and all that stuff, to his bizarre behavior that got him, I think, in trouble on Twitter and so forth. So unfortunately, what should have been a great way to promote the third entry of a popular first-person shooter series has turned into sort of a debacle of a mess for 2K, trying to, well, defend one of their employees and all that stuff and his erratic and bizarre behavior. Well, it seems to be we're going to add another problem. It seems like another problem has been added to Borderlands 3 controversy. Only this time, this doesn't have to do with Randy Pitchford or anything like that. It has to do with a YouTuber supposedly doing something and Take-Two Interactive doing something that has led to a lot of people being unhappy with Take-Two Interactive and pushing for this boycott. In an article on Newsweek, the original article, and I'll read the update that Take-Two and 2K released their statement, it reads, quote, Borderlands 3 fans are staging a Twitter boycott on the game with Boycott Borderlands 3 after representatives from 2K Games allegedly account associate ACCOSTED, a YouTuber, for using development stream codes that have been publicly available for months. The story was reported by Borderlands content creator Supmatto, Supmatto, detailing the presumed event. According to this person, though, the confirmation began on April 29th when the official Borderlands 3 Twitch extension was announced on official channels prior to the game's gameplay reveal. The clip invariably featured the name of Tester's account, which many fans of the series subsequently followed. They provided leaks details which were later covered by Matto, M-A-T-T-O, and fellow content providers. The story contends that on Thursday, July 25th, Supmatto was approached by two private eyes contacted by 2K while at his home. They allegedly questioned him about various leaks and other gameplay details that emerged from the finding. He basically said, quote, I was very, very tense, and many of you could imagine having two people in suits you don't know show up at your home. He recalled the incident. Matters got messier when Matto allegedly received several copyright strikes on his YouTube channel the following day from sources within 2K. Only one remains at the time of this publish, with the channel upload still active. His Discord, on the other hand, is shutting down for being involved in selling, promoting, or distributing cheats, hacks, or cracked accounts. Given these events, Matto has suspended his own Twitter account in an effort to curb rampant speculation. Within hours of this response being posted, Boycott Borderlands 3 started trending on various social media platforms. The organized fan movement arrived following several blunders by the game developers at Gearbox and its outspoken CEO Randy Pitchford. Pitchford has been the subject of gainers' ires since the botched reveal and release of Alien Colonial Marines in 2013, which on a side note, I'm not surprised by that. And it's also a focus of a lawsuit surrounding an alleged secret $12 million bonus that surfaced earlier this year. Most recently, Pitchford savagely attacked gaming news publication Game Informer for its handling in his statement he made regarding microtransactions in Borderlands 3. In other words, gamers at large have plenty of lingering rationales to stage a boycott of the upcoming game. This incident with Supmatto It's merely the most recent narrative to watch. Gearbox and 2K have not made a statement on the matter. But they said, quote, "Well, we'll do our best to keep you updated as the story developed." Well, 2K and Take-Two did recently release a statement as this article was updated. Basically, they got the information from, released a statement to one of the employees at IGN, and the statement reads, quote, "Take-Two and 2K takes the security and confidentiality of trade secrets very seriously. The action to be taken is a result of a 10-month investigation and a history of this creator profiting from breaking our policy, leaking confidential information about our product, and infringing our copyright. The information he's sharing in this situation is incomplete and in some cases untrue. Not only were many of his actions illegal, but they were negatively impacting the experience of other content creators and our fans in anticipation for the game." 2K also reviewed specific claim made by this person, Supmatto, Supmatto. Representative says the investigation included content from videos as far back as 2018. The source Twitch account were private, not public. Access was allegedly gained via a Twitch exploit. Submat was also offering Borderlands 3 leaks on a private Discord channel in exchange for a $5 YouTube membership. This would explain why Matto Discord has been terminated. In other words, they're saying take all this claim below with a grain of salt. So apparently this is another messy situation to add to the Borderlands 3 controversy. I can understand why some fans are pushing for the boycott Borderlands 3 and why this certainly has started to gain some more attention, though. Take-Two and 2K, well, let's just say Take-Two doesn't really have a great reputation. And with a lot of the controversy surrounding Borderlands 3, especially Randy Pitchford, even though it doesn't sound like he has anything directly involved with this situation, though, you can see why everyone is siding with this person for what he did. That said, if there is evidence that shows this person did violate something, it did violate the law or something like that, if there is strong enough evidence that points to this, though, again, I'm not accusing him of anything. I never watched any of his content or anything like that, so I don't know 100% sure of anything like that. So, and like always, the rule is that you're innocent until proven guilty and so forth. So, well, I'll have to see if this turns into any legal actions or anything like that. But if he did violate something, though, then it is possible Take-Two and 2K could be within their rights for what they did, though. But I can also understand why some people would may not agree with what Take-Two or 2K are doing, especially with the whole idea of two people in a suit coming up and all that to your house and all that stuff. So, yeah, I can understand that why that situation could be very tense and so forth. And a lot of people on Twitter have made comments on the situation, such as one Twitter person writes, "We have a new introduction in a dirty developer for harassing a YouTuber and filing suspicious DMCA strikes. Take-Two Interactive," and they put that on there. Another person writes, quote, "Gearbox half-ass Aliens Year Back, Epic Games timed exclusive from Steam, Pitchford's meltdown on Twitter, among other scandals. Take-Two muscling out an aesthetic YouTube with DMC and hired goons hired because much spoilers. See, I told you, hashtag Borderlands 3. Another person writes, quote, "If you're into Borderlands, fair enough. Sending goons to harass a YouTuber, I don't care if you make the best game in the world. You cross the line, boycott Borderlands 3. I mean, if 2K went over the line, though, then yeah, I would. I don't know this person and all that stuff. I just think that it's a very messy situation. It would be really interesting if we see a lawsuit be thrown over this, if a lawsuit does happen or not. And what's also going to be really interesting is if this will have a true impact on Borderlands 3. I mean, we've seen people who make claims, boycott this and that, and yet those same people who do that all end up buying the games anyway. So I'm very curious to see, despite all this controversy, to see if this will truly impact Borderlands 3 or not. As for me, though, given the amount of controversy surrounding this, I may have to consider maybe holding off buying Borderlands 3 for the time being because of the whole controversy and how things have been handled. For what Take-Two and 2K recently did to Gearbox's behavior, particularly Randy Pitchford and so forth. So overall, it's a very, very messy situation right now. Whether or not the boycott really goes through, and whether or not this will impact when Borderlands 3 comes out, remains to be seen. We'll have to wait and see if that truly happens. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to part 6, and we're going to get to a controversy the ESA has now got themselves into, especially with the leak of information of those who attended E3. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 6 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at a controversy that the ESA has now gotten themselves into. Now, the ESA is sort of the lobbying group that represents the video game industry and so forth, but lately their reputation hasn't exactly been 100% perfect, though. As far as their handling of the whole loot boxes and microtransactions, it's been a joke, though. Although recently, as I mentioned earlier, they talked about how Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo will execute a new policy going forward starting in 2020, where basically full disclosure of loot boxes and microtransactions will have to be made, especially for games on their system and so forth. Well, the ESA has certainly gotten themselves into another issue this time. This is the release of personal information of those who may have attended E3 this year, though. In an article on PC Magazine, it reads, quote, the organization behind the E3 gaming convention has exposed the contacts of information of more than 2,000 journalists who attended the show this year. For some reason, E3's public website features a link to a spreadsheet containing the sensitive information, which includes email address, and phone numbers for members of the media who attended the annual gaming show. The security flub was spotted by YouTuber and game writer Sophie Narwits, who notified E3 organizers, the Electronic Software Association, ESA, about the spreadsheet. It said, quote, ESA responded by saying, quote, ESA was made aware of the website's vulnerability that led to the contact list of registered journalists attending E3 being made public. The associate told PC Magazine a statement. Once notified, we immediately took steps to protect the data and shut down the site, which is no longer available. We regret this occurrence and have put measures in place to ensure it will not occur again. Unfortunately, the damage was already done. A copy of the leaked spreadsheets circulating online, open for anyone to view and save. The doxing risk unleashed a new wave of harassment against gaming journalists, many of them who already face personal attack from online trolls who disagree with their views or viewpoints. The danger was underscored in 2014 during the Gamergate controversy, when an online harassment campaign targeted several women in the industry who received death threats and rape threats. That's the whole, disclosure argument, which honestly, I'm not against the disclosure part. I think it's important that I agree with, though, but the harassment, particularly against women, I think was uncalled for and unnecessary. And I can see why Gamergate does somewhat still have a negative light on it, though. Although reporters generally publicize their work, email address, and social media handles, Phone numbers and address information is usually kept private, and for good reason. The ESA hasn't fully explained how that information was posted, but the security blunder illustrates why it's best to avoid handing over your home address and personal cell phone numbers who sign up for these events. It's also worth pointing out that several YouTubers also had their information exposed. Honestly, this is a really bad situation for the ESA, and quite frankly, I would not be surprised if I hear the word lawsuit. I would not be surprised if some of these reporters or some of these YouTubers sue the ESA for this situation. This was really, really bad, and someone should have realized a red flag was being raised and should have done this earlier rather than being waited until somebody exposed and found this information. I mean, this is a huge blunder on the ESA's part, and like I said before, honestly, I would not be shocked if I hear that some of these folks who attended this event, who attended E3 and had their information exposed, I would not be surprised if I hear that they are filing a lawsuit directed towards the ESA. I mean, this is bad. I mean, the ESA is already under a negative light, especially with the way they handled loot boxes and microtransaction, and this just adds more to the situation. So, yeah, not great for the ESA, and like I said, I would not be shocked if I hear the word lawsuit basically happen. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 7, and this one has to do with a patent filed by Microsoft, which many believe this could be Microsoft's answer to the Nintendo Switch. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 7 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at what appears to be a patent filed by Microsoft that many believe could be their answer to the Nintendo Switch. Now, ever since the Switch came out, though, we've seen patents filed before by other companies or announcements of services and all that look like they're trying to, in a way, kind of compete with the Nintendo Switch, although I'm not 100% sure they are. We learned last year that Sony filled out a patent that looked like detachable PlayStation controllers and all that stuff, although that looked like they were going to compete against the Switch, although that never saw the light of day. I mean, after all, patents, a lot of times patents are filled out, not all of them end up seeing the light of day, or not all of them end up like the final version, look like what it was like the final version or anything like that. I mean, at the time when the Switch was called the NX, there were several patents filed for it as well that had that weird like oval shape and all that stuff, and of course we now know what the Switch looks like now. Too recently, Apple announcing the whole Apple Arcade, which is a little bit different than, say, what Google's doing with Google Strada, as they'll have no ads or microtransactions. You could basically play these games offline and download them on your your iPad or your iPod, or your iPad or your iPhone, or play it and so forth. So it follows a similar approach to the Switch, although bear in mind that is a subscription-based service. Well, it looks like Microsoft might be doing something similar to, might be doing something that sounds like it's trying to compete with the Nintendo Switch, but I'm not 100% sure about that. In an article from T3 Smart Living, it reads, quote, "If you're an Xbox gamer who's been hoping for an alternative handheld gaming experience to the Nintendo Switch, you might be in luck. That is, if a patent application filed by Microsoft on July 9th, 2019 turns from sketches into a physical device. According to the patent application, the Xbox handheld attaches to and charge an existing touchscreen device like a smartphone. The Joy-Cons are clipped to the phone case in a bid to offer more immersive console-like gaming. It's unclear whether the console will play mobile games or stream quality games from Xbox Live." Now, this was a they showed off sort of their concept design based off the patent, and what it looks like is that it's basically you have two detachable controllers and they just attach to, like, say, a phone or anything like that. If what the patent is showing is true, I'm not 100% sure this is what I would say a direct competition to the Nintendo Switch. Keep in mind the Switch is a console handheld hybrid. This is a console you could play at home and bring with you on the go. If what they're saying based off the patent, it looks like one of those kind of controllers that you can buy for your iPad or your iPhone and attach to it. So it looks like it's Microsoft's case, and it looks like it's mostly aimed towards it could be for the whole push for that whole xCloud thing that Microsoft is really like pushing forward and all that stuff. They're really pushing that whole xCloud approach. You know, I think it's called Project xCloud and so forth. So it looks more, just based on the patent though, it looks just more like one of those, like I said, one of those controllers that's attached to your phone or a tablet and so forth. I mean, could this exist? Could Microsoft put something out like this? Yeah, I could see that happening and all that stuff. I mean, but will it see the light of day? Who knows? Based on what the article is saying, based on the patent that was filled out, based on the patent that was filled out, though, basically, I'm looking at the patent right now. It doesn't sound like, to me, it doesn't seem like a Switch device, but like Microsoft is developing their own version of a Switch. It seems more like we got these controllers, hook them up to your iPad or iPhone, hook up to our xCloud service, Project xCloud, and you can play Xbox games off of it and so forth. So, I'm not really sure. I don't really see this as being something that's going to be a direct competition to the Nintendo Switch, but who knows? That could change over time and all that stuff. Maybe it's possible Microsoft could be developing their own handheld. Maybe they do want to compete against Nintendo and all. But if that's true and they are truly developing their own handheld, I'm very curious to see what sacrifices or compromise could maybe have to be made, because basically I would assume if they're developing their own handheld, it's not going to be graphically as intense as, say, like something off like the Xbox Scarlet or something like that. So overall, we'll have to wait and see if this patent sees the light of day, though. And based on what the article is saying, and based on the concept design, though, I would say I don't see it as being a complete competition to the Nintendo Switch. It seems more like a controller option for like using the Project xCloud, and it looks like one of those controllers you see like at a Apple store or a Mac Apple store or like a Microsoft store, you know, like one of those controllers you just attach to either your iPhone, or if you have an Android, your Android, or an iPad or a tablet. That's what I think it looks like, though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to part 8, and this one has to do with the whole violent video game issue that has come up in the recent, as you're probably aware about the recent shootings that happened. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our 8th and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and this one has to do with the whole issue of the whole violent video game issue coming up. Now, before I begin talking about this, I do want to give a full disclosure. This one might be a bit political, and I may have and this one will probably express my political views on this. So if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. But that said, I'm going to stand behind my political views and what I have to say about this situation, no matter what. So with that out of the way, why don't we get started talking about it, though. So as some of you are probably aware or have seen on the news, recently we had 2 mass shootings happen here in the U.S. One happened in El Paso, Texas. One Texas, and one happened in Dayton, Ohio. For what I understand, the El Paso. Oh, we also had one up in San Francisco, I think, with the whole garlic festival going on. Forgot to mention that one. The El Paso one recently the gunman recently surrendered and openly admitted to shooting people of Mexican descent as sort of a response to a lot of, basically a lot of anti-immigration rhetoric that has come out. Well, recently both of these shootings have come out, and it seems as though basically, at least from the Republican side, sounds like it's trying to divert the blame away from trying to do any gun control or anything like that. Recently, President Trump has come out and basically put video games and media on the spotlight. He basically, according to comicbook.com, it reads that, and this was made on August 5th, President Donald Trump today delivered a statement in the wake of this past weekend's tragic mass shooting. 20 people were killed in El Paso, Texas at a Walmart on Saturday, and 9 were killed in Daytona, Ohio on Sunday, marking a week of fully deadly gun violence for the nation. After stating that America must condemn racist bigotry and white supremacy, as well as pointing to the perils of the internet, President Trump later went on and said, "We must stop the glorification of violence in our society." The first item on the list, video games. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplaces. President Trump said it's too easily today for troubled youths to surround themselves with a culture that celebrates violence. We must stop or essentially reduce this and have to begin immediately. The speech from President Trump also suggests various policy changes and other programs include but not limited to mental health, although it's worth pointing out Trump tried to tie mental health with immigration reform, even though both issues have absolutely nothing to do with it, though, and it's worth pointing out the person who did the shooting was also spewing anti-immigration comments. Let's also not forget Trump has a history of making vile anti-immigration comments. Let's not forget he referred to Mexicans as rapists and so forth, and made a recent comment about a congresswoman telling her to go back to her country. So I'd like to point that out. Mental health reform, social media protocol, red flag laws to prevent access to firearms for certain individuals, and speedy death penalties, in addition to cracking down on violent video games, though. However, it seems as though some people have kind of responded to this, and this one is from Nintendo Enthusiast, where Reggie Fils-Aimé, recently, the former head of Nintendo, recently came out and said, quote, "Facts are facts, games don't cause gun violence." Basically, he said, quote, and this is what he said about its quotes. He said, "Reggie decided to chime in," and this is from Nintendo Enthusiast, "chime in after longtime journalist and Game Award creator Greg Kelly, voiced his thoughts. Kelly decided to combat the negative being hurled at the video game industry by sharing a more positive story. Kelly explained how the Game Awards helped shine a spotlight on a man who has spent 22 years living in a refugee camp. The government of Canada was inspired by his story of being a community together through gaming. As a result, they offered him and his family permanent refugee status and moved them to Toronto. Reggie shared this story to refute the negativity and refer to critics of gaming as ill-informed. He then provides some stats to attempt to dispel the narrative that games cause violence, though. He writes on his Twitter account, quote, on his Twitter account, when the ill-informed are being critical of the gaming industry and communities, this is a very powerful story. The fact that our country, with the higher per capita gaming revenue, has fewer gun shooting deaths, except for the US, where 4% of the population owns 43% of the guns. And he shows a chart basically showing video game revenues per person estimated for 2019, and it shows the US, and it shows violent gun deaths per 1,000 people in 2017. It shows us with the highest gun deaths ever. And of course, the also interesting following this whole incident is that Walmart is removing video game displays that refer to violence, yet somehow they seem to be okay with selling guns at their store. Honestly, I'm not buying the violent video game argument. To me, this, along with the House Speaker, the Congressional Majority Leader in the House, who is Republican, to me, this sounds more like an attempt not to address gun control and all. This, to me, sounds more like it's basically another way of saying, though, we're not going to take any responsibility whatsoever. We'll just blame the video game industry or the entertainment industry because the NRA supports our re-election campaign and we want their support as much as possible. That, or you could make the argument that they also bribe them as well. So I am not buying this argument on this at all. And let's also not forget the situation with video games are different than they were like in the 80s and the 90s. Video games are more mainstream now than they were in the past, though. More and more people are getting into gaming, though. Adults are getting into gaming. I could say that adults are, and there are different variety of games for different kinds of people. I've played many different varieties of games before. I've played games that are risque and raunchy. I've played games that are violent. I've even played games that are neither of those. Just simple, plain fun, like Super Mario Odyssey, for crying out loud. And to me, I'm not buying this argument about this. Not to mention, there is certainly no mention, at least at this time, that both those shootings that happened had these guys were playing video games or they were inspired by video games or anything like that. So for me, I'm not buying this whole argument, though. I think this is an example. This is, to me, anytime they say that they're blaming violent video games, it's another way of saying we're not going to do anything about gun control. We're just not going to do anything at all about it because we need the NRA support because they give us money during our re-election campaign and so forth. So I'm not buying this. And for the record, I do think Trump's rhetoric helped create the kind of situation that it is. Then again, say what you will, I think Donald Trump is a awful individual, and I am willing to stand behind that statement no matter what. So overall, I think this is a ridiculous argument they're using, that the Republicans and President Trump is using. I think it's nothing more than trying to turn attention away of trying to do anything in regards of gun control. As for Walmart itself, I find it laughable that they are removing displays of violent video games, yet they are okay with having like firearms for sale for people who want to buy at their Walmart. To me, yeah, I'm not buying into that, and I don't shop at Walmart that much anyway. I'll probably go to like Target or something like that. Besides, I buy my video games from places like Best Buy, GameStop, Target sometimes, Amazon, and of course PlayAsia as well. So although I did hear they're still going to sell those violent video games and all that stuff, but honestly, I think it's a dumb policy on Walmart and all that stuff. It's their decision. If that's their decision, that's their decision. But I think it's an utterly and ridiculous decision to make. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Darksider 2 finally coming to the Nintendo Switch? Are you pleased about this announcement? Are you looking forward to picking up Darksiders 2 for the Nintendo Switch? Or is the game a pass for you in any way? Do you think this can open the door to Darksiders 3 coming to the Nintendo Switch? What are your thoughts about Grandia HD Collection, if I'm saying the name correctly, coming to the Nintendo Switch as well? Are you looking forward to picking up these RPGs for the Nintendo Switch? Do you think they should have made a physical version for it? Do you think the third entry, I believe there's a third entry, I'm not 100% sure. Do you think that will come to the Nintendo Switch? And do you think the game will do well enough to convince the developers to maybe do another entry or revive the series at all? What do you think about Sony's and Microsoft's and Nintendo's decision regarding the loot box controversy? Do you think this is a step in the right direction for what they're doing? Or do you view this as nothing more of them just, covering their asses and so forth? What are your thoughts about what Nintendo's going to show at Gamescom 2019? Are you impressed with what they are going to show? Do you think they may have a couple more surprises? Are there any game in particular you're looking to learn more information about? Like, I'm looking to learn more about The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. What are your thoughts about the latest controversy regarding Borderlands 3? Do you think Take-Two and 2K were in the right for what they did, or do you think they stepped out of line? Do you think the boycott Borderlands 3 is going to catch on? Do you think this will impact the sales of Borderlands 3, or do you think this will have like no impact at all? What are your thoughts about this whole ESA leak? Do you think ESA handled this poorly, and do you think that a lawsuit's going to come out of this though? What are your thoughts about this patent being filed by Microsoft, which shows these detachable controllers? Do you think this could be Microsoft's answer to the Nintendo Switch, or do you don't really see that? Don't see it being a competitor to the Nintendo Switch at all? And what are your thoughts about the whole recent blaming video games for the recent shooting, though? Do you think this is the same dog and pony show that has been played one too many times and it needs to stop? Do you think politicians are right to step in on this issue, or do you think do you see it like as this is another way of blaming the entertainment industry while turning the other cheek in regards of gun control? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment below if you have something to say about the situation, and if you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it, and I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this YouTube video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!